And hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of Talking Balls in conjunction with TUS, Technological University of the Shannon. My name is Dermot Malini, and I'm joined by my co-host today, Mr. Richie Kennedy. Say hi, Richie.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, great to talk to you. We're both lecturers in TUS Midwest. If you're interested in a career in sports development, sports management, coaching, strength and conditioning, health promotion, we have a huge range of courses available. Just click on the links below this video and you'll find out everything that you need to know. So we hopefully see you in TUS very, very soon. Richie, would you like to introduce us to today's guest on Talking Balls?
Thanks, Dermot. So today's guest is a previous teammate of mine from the days at Crystal Palace and Brentford in the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. He is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the nicest guys I was lucky enough to meet in my time in the UK. He is the current under-18 head coach at Crystal Palace. Please welcome Mr. Rob Quinn.
Great intro, Kenno. Yeah, great to see you. Great to see you. Kenno, I haven't seen for a long time. Fittest and strongest man ever in football.
Is that me or Richie? I'm not sure who you're talking to.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. Very fit.
We'll say it's Richie.
Yeah.
So, Rob, if you don't mind, give us a little background in terms of from your journey from player up to where you are currently doing as your coaching career.
Yeah. I started at Crystal Palace. Did my YTS there, similar to what Rich did. Was lucky enough to sign a pro. Played a few first team games, then moved to Brentford. Played probably the most of my football at Brentford over a period of like nearly 3 seasons there, and then played at Oxford and then Bristol Rovers. Didn't really work out, and I didn't enjoy my time probably at them 2 clubs. Then carried on full time for another couple of years at Stevenage, at Gravesend, and a couple of other teams lower down. Excuse me, sorry. So I was full time for about 16 years in football, and then didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was coming to the end. Wasn't really enjoying my football. Went and did a personal training course. At AFC Wimbledon, I got a job. They employed me. I said they'd signed me, but I said I need a job. So they employed me there with another teammate of ours, Gareth Graham, who was there a couple of years before me. Great club, unbelievable. Obviously now they're back in the league. But yeah, they employed me. I worked in an office for about 3 or 4 months. Didn't really enjoy it. Wanted to be doing something more active. Went and did a personal training course so I could do that part-time. Ended up working in David Lloyd for a couple of years. Really enjoyed the personal training side of it. Meeting people, talking to people. Most of my clients were men, really, talking about football, to be honest. But really enjoyed it. I didn't make enough money. I struggled in terms of trying to earn enough money on it. And then didn't think I'd go into coaching, to be honest. Was doing a bit of coaching on a college scheme with Welling United, where I played. And then started enjoying it. And then did my B licence, did my level 2, and then did my B. Contacted Dougie Freeman, who was the first team manager at the time, more out of just trying to see if I could watch some sessions. Dougie was brilliant, got back to me straight away, said, look, what are you looking to try and do? I said, I want to come and observe. He said, right, come in, have a watch, and if there's any opportunities, I'll try and see if we can help you out. Lucky enough to get a job part-time. I was part-time at Palace doing the 10s. Coaching Dougie's lad, actually, a bit of pressure, coaching his boy and Christian Popovich's boy in my first group. Made a lot of mistakes in that first couple of years, a lot of mistakes. But yeah, it was part-time for 5 years, and now luckily I've been full-time for 5 years and worked from 10s all the way up. So I've seen a lot of youth development in terms of loved it, coaching the young kids.
Very good. So, Quinny, the academy now at Palace is, it's probably, it's state of the art. It is in comparison to what was in Crystal Palace back in the, early to mid 90s, late 90s. Place called Mitcham. It's worlds apart. But just for a bit of background, where is the academy located, and what type of, in terms of numbers of staff and how many players kind of come through, I suppose, in any given week?
So the academy's based in Beckenham. We're literally over the road from the first team site down in Copers Cope. It used to be a bank ground. You probably would have played there, Rich, when we were younger. But yeah, literally, it's in the last 18 months, the change in the facility, driven by the chairman, who's got a tremendous passion for the club and knowledge as well, really good football knowledge. And he's driven it, obviously, with backing of owners. And we've now got an unbelievable facility, where it's a pleasure to go in every day and work. For us, what we used to have was a hut with showers and 2 pitches probably. Now the boys have got a full-size indoor dome. I haven't seen a better dome than our one at the moment. It blows you away when you see it. We've got a full-size Astro. We've got a show pitch that the 18s and 21s play on, which is like a carpet. Every pitch is a carpet. They've got 3 training pitches now, and we're getting more built. We've got classrooms on site. All the boys do their education on site. We've got canteen. They're doing the second phase, where there'll be a hydro pool, rehab facilities, and it'll be second to none, to be honest.
Well, yeah, going back to those days, Quinny, at Mitcham. So obviously we in this, say, a wooden hut or wooden shack almost, you nearly call Mitcham, with all due respect. But there was, you'd have U team players, you'd have reserve players, and you'd have all the first team all in one, relatively small building. And I often think back to, what you're kind of exposed to as a U team player, because obviously you had adults there from late 30s to coaches that are obviously 40s, 50s, and possibly at times would not have been the maybe ideal environment for a young lad to be in, because look, just the way egos, testosterone, the kind of macho type of environment. But in other ways, and I look at the academy now at Palace, and obviously and all the stuff you described that they have now at the moment, do you think there is a certain amount of stuff is lost from the way things are so almost perfectly set up, and our players, you feel, I say mollycoddled, but are they missing out a little bit more of, I say, tough love, a bit more of hardship, a reality of life, that, say, the old Mitcham would have had compared to the new academy, where everything is perfect?
Yeah, I think listen, we grew up in the time where we didn't have player care, we didn't have safeguarding, we didn't have enough education. So there's the huge improvement on that side of it, and the aftercare and the education side and career pathways. But there is still, which I still, probably similar to you, there's not enough realism. And it's hard to get the realism of what life is about and how tough it is, because honestly, our boys here have got everything that they on a plate. They've got unbelievable food. They've got unbelievable care. They've got so many staff. Like, for instance, my staff is 18s. There's me, an assistant, strength and conditioning coach, analyst, player care, safeguarding, physio, education, and that's like our team just for 18s. It's like we have MDTs every week, and it's brilliant because every player gets talked about really in depth. Not like we would have been talked about, but where we had the benefit of having the first team players on site, it made me. I grew up literally probably within 6 months. I was a totally different from where I joined as a naive 16-year-old from where I was from, going into Croydon. It made me man up in terms of that, in whatever that term means, but made me grow up probably, and made me a lot more streetwise than I was when I first went there. But it also set the expectations, and we saw certain good standards, but we also saw some poor standards and poor examples. But it's in terms of being in day out, seeing first team players, having a respect for them, having that's where you want to be. Some of our lads miss out on that. It's better now with the new manager's been brilliant, by the way, in terms of incorporating young players, conversations, that he's so humble, such a humble guy for what he's achieved in his life. And he takes a real interest in, will come and when I see him, like, speak to me just as a normal person, which is amazing because I still look up to him literally as well because he's such a huge guy. But he's been brilliant in terms of the young players. And this summer was the best because they trained on our site. while they were getting theirs redeveloped. So it was a bit like the old days. First team were on site. I could walk down the corridor, then you bump into the manager. He'd watch our pre-season game, come and talk to the lads. Such an effect, such a profound effect on a young boy, like we were, when the manager speaks to you, takes an interest in what you're doing. And that's the staff. Like I said, that's the staff. So yeah, but there's some of the realism and some of the stuff that we had to do in terms of jobs and being there too late, being there really early, taking care of a professional. There's still a lot to be said for that, in my opinion, in terms of values that will stay with you for life.
Very good. Jeremy, just before you jump in, just a quick trip to memory lane with Richie here. But just the way you spoke about the manager, Quinn, Patrick Vieira. But I remember I was a first year at Palace, and the old training ground, remember the physio room was about 3 beds, it was quite small. Gary Sadler was a physio, a great man. But I was going in one morning to get my ankles strapped, and I was always wary walking in if there was first team players in there, because again, you kind of might feel they might take the mickey out of you or whatever. They might pull you up on something you're wearing or whatever. Anyway, so I walked in there, and I think it was Simon Roger, Ray Houghton, and Dean Gordon. So big personalities, big characters, big, people within stature within the club. So I walked in, going, "Oh, here we go," standing there like a mouse. But anyway, my turn came. I sat up on the bed, and next thing, Steve Coppell, who was the manager at the time, walked in. So we said hello to the 3 lads. So I just kind of sat there, barely, couldn't make eye contact. But straight away he came over, and I said, "Hi Richard, how are you getting on?" He asked me, did I play Gaelic football back in Ireland? He asked me then, did I know Kevin Moore, who was he had played with at Manchester United, who was an ex-Irish international, who had played Gaelic football at a very high level as well, and kind of made the conversation very relative to me. And I'll never forget it, because I just thought, I know I'm talking about it now, obviously. So it made a very, an impact on the I suppose, it made an impact on me and the impression you can make on younger people by giving a little bit of time. And I just thought it was something fascinating. But I just thought it related to what you said, Quinny, about Patrick Vieira, and kind of if he comes in and speaks to a group of players, it cannot but have a huge impact on those guys.
Yeah. Just the human side of it, which is I try to do that, because it's the relationship side is the most important thing for me. It's the most important thing. But like we had Ray Lou. Ray Lou was the biggest influence, I think, on me in terms of how he treated us as individuals. He'd have a go at you, but he'd also treat you as a human being as well, and ask about how you are. And I think he was the best for that, for man management, for me.
Yeah.
I might just jump in there, actually, because you brought up something interesting, Richie, that I hadn't planned to ask. But Richie, you spoke there about Kevin Moore, having played Gaelic football as a kid. But I'm just curious, would you prefer players coming into you having specialised in football from an early age, or do you like them to have played multiple sports? And if it's the multi-sport model, at what age then should specialisation occur?
Yeah, it's tricky. To be honest, I think, listen, there's experience of boys coming in later. Probably we've just signed a boy from Ireland from Northern Ireland this year. He's the first one in his family ever to play football or soccer, but his whole family is really high up in terms of that sport. For us nowadays, in terms of the multi-sport, I think the boys in the academy where they join at 8, being honest, I don't think many of them would do multi-sports now. I think it'd be probably 90% football, which I'm not. Yeah, I think there should be a mix personally, but this could open up another can of worms in terms of the level of PE in schools, because I've got 2 boys, and my opinion on PE in schools is not very good. Over here, it might be better, hopefully, in Ireland, but for me, what I've experienced is not very good in terms of the value of it, in terms of the delivery, and the terms of options. So I think majority of academy boys at our place, I guarantee that's their specialist sport, and they'd focus 90% probably on football, especially from the parents, where they would say, no, you just got to do football, don't worry about anything else, that you might get injured, just worry about football. which is not right, because that's not going to be their life. That's not going to be their life going forwards. So I think there's benefit, because you can see in terms of, the crossover on coordination, like even just the basic of teamwork, how to work as a team. If you're doing another team sport, there's massive positives to do that. But I think the majority of us would just be doing football at the moment.
We got an insight into the academy through the Channel 4 documentary. I think it was called the Football Dreams Academy. So I just checked it out this morning. It's still available on the Channel 4 player for anybody who's kind of curious to see that. Was that a positive experience for you guys? And is it something you do again?
It was interesting to see how much filming went on and how little got shown. How much time we did, doing interviews around our staff, our players. For me personally, I think that the chairman was very pleased in terms of how it came across, especially for the club, because I think there's a lot more you could have seen behind the scenes in terms of the education side and the player welfare, like the player care side of it. He'd be keen to do. I think he may be keen to do another one. I think it opened people's eyes up as to how intense it is at younger, obviously from 8 all the way up. Boys are in like 4 or 5 times a week. It's a massive commitment for families, and they can see that how much the parents want it as much as the kids want it.
It's a really nice segue into my next question, which was going to be about I guess what we get through watching the documentary is just the ultra competitive, intense, high pressure nature of the academy environment, and obviously that creates a lot of pressure for you guys as coaches, pressure on young kids. I mean, you mentioned kids coming in young as 8 years of age. So maybe let's start with the kids who are in the system, and we'll focus on maybe player development a little bit more in a few moments. But so there's obviously a need from you, and you spoke about it with Richie a moment ago. I think you call it the sort of the realism of player development. But how do you balance that, the requirement to sort of apply pressure, apply stress, build failure into the system, and at the same time do all the other things that you mentioned, like player welfare, education, safeguarding? How do you get the balance right?
Yeah. Well, in our system at the moment, they only play for points from under 18. Personally, I think they should be exposed to that a little bit earlier, possibly 16s, like playing for 3 points, because from 9 to 16, every boy would have to play a certain number of minutes over the season, which is good to have that exposure to game time to develop. However, I think there needs to be the balance of playing. If you want a career in any sport and you're playing for points where it matters, and they're going to get selected or not selected, the first time they get it is at under 18 level, and it's different. It's different. They get the different exposure. There's more pressure. There is pressure. Like I say to them, if you want to be at the top end, you're going to have to play with it. You have to enjoy the pressure, embrace it. It's a privilege to have the pressure. It's not for everyone, because some people will fold under the pressure. It does different things to everyone. We have more pressure on us as staff as well, because money's been invested in the academy. We have to produce players. We have to do well. So the balance, I think, our club and a lot of the academy clubs in England, a lot of people are keen for it to be probably from under 16s, where they're playing for 3 points, just to bridge them into it. I don't think they shouldn't be playing for points at 9s and 10s. That's ridiculous. It should be about fun for me. But there's the balance of that. At the weekend, we build up. So, for instance, we build our week up into the game at the weekend. It's like to try and similar in terms of how the first team or the under 21s would do it, in terms of preparation, tactical preparation. Ramps up a little bit as the week goes on, but we primarily try and focus on us and how we want the Crystal Palace way in terms of trying to play games. But they get exposed to a lot more stuff than we would, even probably 10 years ago, young players, in terms of the analysis side of it, debriefs, and the preparation on the physical side as well.
You mentioned kind of player care, you mentioned safeguarding, you mentioned education. Maybe just give us a kind of a brief overview of what's entailed in those, of what you do with young players.
Yeah, so that when they join us at 16, they're all on a 2-year program, scholarship program. So they all registered for the BTEC program, the extended diploma. But the majority now, a lot of boys are doing A levels alongside it, and the boys will have one-to-one tutoring for A levels, which is amazing. Like a huge leap from when, even like I said, at our place, even 2 years ago, we couldn't offer this. It's all offered in-house. We have tutors that come out to them. One boy left with 4 A levels last year. We've got really bright young men as well. People have still got that stigma, I think, around it, but we've seen a change in that, and it's good. The education side is so important. I value it. I'm big on that because they need to have something else to fall back on and not wait till mid-30s like I was. They need to have plans in place. So the education is good. On day release from 12s, under 13s upwards, the tutors, they'll come out 1 day a week and they'll spend the whole day here doing education and training. So there's been a huge investment in a number of tutors that the chairman's driven. So the boys they'll come out, they have lessons, they train, they have lessons again, then they train. So it's like a full-time model. We have a lot of coaching hours on that side of it. The player care department has grown hugely in 2 years. So I said there's a player care guy for 18s and 21s, and there's another 2 now for like 9s to 16s, or 3. We've just employed someone else, another ex-player actually. So they're full-time. They're in and around the players every day, speak to the players, have different conversations to us. We'll travel away when we go overnight, like we're traveling to Leeds tomorrow. They'll come up, they meet with the players, find out other issues, and then bring them to our attention if we need to know about it. Safeguarding is full-time. We've got a lot of full-time safeguarding people at the club, which is important. They're in our meetings every week. What else? Other departments. Yeah, the performance, probably for the performance team, because I don't like being called strength and conditioning. The performance team has been probably the biggest positive and improvement in the club I've seen in the last 3 years. The periodization we use, and how we work so closely together in terms of getting the players ready for what hopefully Premier League football and a career in football and sport, just in terms of getting their body and the amount of training we do and how rigid it is.
So in the documentary that we spoke about a minute ago, there's one particular kid, Toby. I think he features in the YouTube kind of promo clip as well.
Yeah.
And there's a quote from him: "I don't have a plan B. My goal is to be a professional footballer." So I imagine that's a pretty common approach across most of the kids, but obviously not every Toby is going to make it as a pro footballer. So can you give us maybe an idea, if it's okay to ask it, kind of what are the attrition rates? Like how many kids make it from the academy to the next level? And for those who don't make it, are there any supports built in for those who go to a different club or just drop out of sport completely?
Yeah, I think on average, I'd say there's 10 boys. 10 boys would get offered a scholarship every season, around that number, maybe out of a group of 16 approximately. It might be more, but for instance, the decisions will be coming up very soon for the current under 16s. One player's already just been told, and already he's got a trial at another club. So we're very proactive, and I was when I was 16, to getting the boys something else lined up straight away, because there's so many doors they can go through now. There's so many clubs out there, and the contacts we have, and that what the chairman has introduced and the club have introduced. I'm gonna have to charge this phone in a minute. Sorry. In terms of that player care and trying to get a 3-year program and follow up with them. So where they go, touching base with them quite regularly in terms of what they're doing now, what do they need? Can we try and get them back into the club somehow? The chairman's very keen to do that, and he's big. We've got a number of ex players at the club in different roles which is good to see. Obviously, there's lads who haven't played football as well, because there's brilliant coaches. You don't have to have played football to coach, but it's good that the club try and look after ex players as well in different roles, like player care roles. We've got 2 in player care roles. Some guys, I think, will then go in the performance route. Analysis, we had an ex-player who's now the 21s analyst. Just learned his way, and he's now brilliant at his job. So yeah, there's a real aftercare.
Richie, you were telling me just before we came on air the story of how you found out you were going to get cut. Maybe you might have shared that with the viewers.
Yeah, I was just saying to Dermot, Quinny, so the day I was before I got released, obviously we're all, a few of us were finding out what was going to happen. I was got the year pro after U18. I did okay, and I was struggling with I was due to go in for a double hernia operation at the end of the season, because basically the physio said, Gary had said, look, you'll probably get away with playing on with this issue for the next 5-6 weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll give you the best chance, to kind of do well and hopefully get an extension in your contract. So I played away anyway, and there was a first team player. Do you remember? You'll remember David Tuttle.
Yeah, yeah.
Tuttle said to me, "Oh, hey, listen, I've heard on the grapevine, you're getting another year, another year pro." So I was like, he said it a few times. So now I'd be fairly pessimistic or negative in terms of my chances. But once I heard this, I was like, right, he said it to me a second time and a third time. So actually, I went into Steve Coppell's office at the time, thinking she was going to tell me I'm getting another year. And then obviously when he said to me, listen, unfortunately, and I heard that, I was like, boom. It was like, and look, like I said, if Tuts hadn't said anything to me, I probably would have been more prepared. But like I was saying to Dermot earlier on, so I left Mitcham then. I had to go down to I can't remember the name of the private hospital, to have a double hernia operation on the same day. And then I came out the next day, had to wait about 4 days then to fly back to Ireland. But yeah, that was, that's just the way things were at the time. Like, it's totally different.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, I did come back to start or toward pre-season that season, because Steve Coppell had said, look, when you come back, you can do some rehab here with Gary and some of the other physios that'll be here. So in fairness, look, they let me come back for, I can't remember, it was 6 or 7 weeks for a bit of rehab. So look, that was on the back of Steve Coppell just being an absolute gentleman. But just going on to, just as I suppose a comparison in times and how things were then, how things were now, it's great to see it has changed.
Yeah, no, it's a big improvement on that side of it. Now, to be honest, when I first started at Palace like 11 years ago, there would probably just be me. I can remember my first release meeting. The boy was only 10, like under 11, and it was just me, the dad, and the boy. And the dad got really angry, really aggressive, like in terms of dealing with the news. But we've now, moved forward in terms of like the number of staff that are there, telling the parents beforehand. Sometimes, do you want us to tell them, or do you want to tell your child, which is good, because sometimes that's the way they want to go. So there's a lot more care and thought put into it, which is good. Yeah, because years ago it was brutal. And it was wasn't done right, was it? It was done just basically you in a room, see you later, off you go.
Just before we throw back to Richie for the next piece on player development, you mentioned, Quinny, the kind of pressure on you guys as coaches. So obviously staff welfare is important too. And it must be pretty brutal in terms of, you mentioned kind of investment and the pressure to produce the next Zaha or Wanda Saka or whoever it happens to be. Is self-care or is coach welfare, is that something you put a focus on?
I think we've got better in terms of coach CPD as well. In terms of our own, I'd probably go and speak to, if I want advice, I'll go and speak to some people I know outside of our club. But there is people I could speak to in the club. I would do. We're better at, I'm not bad at getting advice, but we had Chris Houghton in yesterday. Coming, it was really good. He come and spoke to all us coaches as a CPD. Obviously, he was a legend for the Republic for a long time, and he was such a great guy, really, really humble, and I like the way he spoke. You could tell, really soft guy in terms of how he spoke, but he had obviously that steel underneath because he's been manager at a lot of Premier League clubs. But he said, we asked me and Paddy McCarthy asked him after. how do you deal with the losses? And he said, yeah, everyone will say, yeah, I'll switch off, go and spend time with the family, but they lie, because even for me, yeah, losses are the hardest thing, because you invest so much of your time into working with the lads, developing them, trying to win at the weekend. And I think like it's the same whether it's for me and the same at the Premier League. I know there's difference in terms of pressure, but we all struggle to deal with it. But I try to live by that. Yeah, 24 hours. Either you enjoy it, never too high, never too low, and you have to try and do that, and put on a face for the boys on a Monday if you've lost, and then be positive again. But yeah, in terms of mental health, I think primarily for me in the club, it would be probably me speaking to probably one of the safeguarding team we've got, because they're good people. Yeah, and I'd be happy to talk to them in-house. Outside of it, there's one guy called Steve Salis, who's a really good guy, really forward thinking. You might have heard he's quite big on social media now. He's good, and you can go and there's different people I would go and pick their brain on certain things where you want a bit of advice.
Pretty. So, look, there's going to be, I suppose, the demographic that will really watch this or listen to this will be, so for a combination of students, some of them involved in sport, other coaches, parents, and I know it's probably the holy grail, but what in your opinion is what are the ingredients for a player that tends to go on to make it? You know, are the key indicators that you go, boom, you know, once they have these 3 or 4 characteristics or as part of their character, they got a great chance of making it.
I still think the hunger, the real want and desire to keep going and working every day, and the ones who are obsessed with football. You can see a lot of the young boys we've had come through, and what you see them, the ones who are just obsessed with football. We've got a boy at the moment who's out injured, who unfortunately he's had a bad injury, but we've got really high hopes of him. And he is just, even though he's injured, he snapped his hand. He's still now walking around with a ball in his hand every day, moving it around. You can tell the ones who just sleep probably with a football and just constantly think about football, dream about football. Physically, in terms of criteria has changed probably from when I was young, especially like at 13. The physical capabilities of the boys are probably being maximised a lot more now. And in terms of criteria that our club will look for, that is one of the criteria, as long as the technical side of it, physical, because you've got to be able to move nowadays. You've got to be able to move, because if you can't, you're not going to play at the top end. The club will make you better at it, but you've got to have a core of that. Yeah,
sorry, Quinny. Sorry, you say move, you mean speed?
Everything in terms of not just speed. I think the performance team will look at and improve them, because they do obviously a number of tests, and they're more knowledgeable than me on that side of it. But yeah, how they move, the potential in terms of measuring, like we said, measuring what's the growth going to be, what are they going to look like in the future, or in terms of like benchmark testing, in terms of rating them, what we'd have, probably not, we wouldn't have him, but we've got like Tyrick Mitchell. What was he like at testing at 14? What are the boys like testing now? They regularly tested by the Premier League in terms of that speed. So there'd be speed testing, jump testing, agility testing, all these, like the best movers overall. Yeah, I don't want to be too generic with that, but not just speed.
Yeah. So like we're saying, a couple of guys within some of the students, some of the questions they were kind of looking to put towards you, Quinny. So one was, so how do you combat the relative age effect? Obviously, the idea of, so you might have 2 13-year-olds. One could be 6 foot, strong as a horse. The other guy could be, 5'6", and looks like he's about 11.
Yeah, we've got that. No, I've had experience of that within our group. There's one when the boys were. There's a boy now who's a second-year pro, and he come in at 14, come late. He plays, and he was 6'2" probably at 14. And there was another boy who was probably 5'3", 5'4". He was so small. And we have predominantly, there's you'd say the early maturers are in there from our September to January. There's still that period one. A lot of the academy boys are that within that window, the September to January. We've got better, I think, as a club of being more patient. There's a boy we've been patient with now, and a good example of him. He's under 15s, tiny, really skinny, slight, but we know he's a great passer of the ball, great awareness. He was a centre mid. We still is a centre mid. Then me and Powley really liked him. We pushed not just us, but other people. We could see something in him. He was in a group that was successful. A lot of players. He didn't play a lot of minutes as 15s, as 16s. He didn't when I had him. Then got a scholarship, but then unfortunately he was cruciate on his first week in his scholarship. Now he's 6'2", strong boy. He's been given an extended scholar, which is brilliant. So he's still in the club. He's like a first-year pro, but not quite pro. Just gone on loan to Carshalton in the Ryman, just near Palace, and he's doing well. He just needs to play. But we've got another boy in the under 15s who's a absolute dot of a boy against huge boys in his own age group. So the club, like I said, have changed our mindset a little bit in terms of being patient with that. We can see it. We can have the data. There's a lot of more data on it in terms of, all right, we know he's going to grow. Like Matt, this boy, we knew he was going to grow. We knew he was going to be big. It's just a matter of time waiting for him. Technically, he was fine. So that's one of the main criteria. Is he technically good enough? Because it doesn't matter if you're small, big. He's going to have to be able to. If he's small and got no outstanding attributes, there wouldn't be a reason really. They have to have the attributes in there that we can see. Right, they're going to be potentially a talent. Like the boy did have, he had talent, and there's another one in the 15s now who's got great attitude, great desire, and he's technically bright. He will grow. It's just when will he grow? Will we be patient enough to do that?
Very good. And just one other question on that. I have to admit, I'm ignorant to this. Do you guys use biobanding?
We've used it briefly in the past. I haven't, being honest, I haven't been exposed to it a lot. We did it a bit when I was 13s, 14s coach in terms of mixing the groups. And I think the way we would have done it, maybe not always by design, but the tours. So when you go on tours abroad, it's by year. So 2004, and that's where it's a mix of, because obviously in England, it's September to September or September to August. Abroad, a lot of countries, it's January to January. So naturally, when you go abroad, you're going to be playing against lads in the year above or year below. So probably not by design all the time. And COVID has affected that negatively, really, in terms of player development and exposure to playing different teams. So I think, being 100% honest, I wouldn't know if we're currently doing it with younger groups. I'd have to ask, yeah. But we've touched on it, but not religiously over the last few years. But it's more from tours, to be honest, and exposing boys playing up and down.
Yeah. Dermot, have you any more to add before we hit the all quick fire round to finish it off?
I have about 20, but I'm conscious of time, and I'm sure Rob is a busy man and he's got a million other things to be doing. So
I'm all right. I'm okay.
There was one, just maybe one other question, just as you were speaking, I was thinking about the kind of alignment of kind of the coaching philosophy from underage through to academy through to senior. So if a new Patrick Vieira, he'll leave at some stage, a new head coach comes in, a different playing style. How does that affect everything underneath? Does that change anything?
Well, we've got it's a common thing, isn't it? Because managers change regularly, don't they? We've now got so the club are quite keen. We've got our own and revamped it probably over the last year or so in terms of big influence from Dougie Freeman and from the chairman and Gary, the academy director, just about a Palace philosophy. Yeah, we've got our own way that we will coach through the age groups to be aligned, like you said, trying to some core messages that will carry on throughout every team. And our head of coaching, Carl Plunkett, reinforces that with us. And the manager, to be fair, like this year, we try. So we try and outplay or out press and out play. That's what we're trying to do in terms of playing out from the back a lot more than we did from when I first joined here. In terms of when and how to do that, there's different ways to do it. But yeah, trying to have every lad exposed to being comfortable on the ball, from keeper, from goalkeeper, because they're players in possession. They're not a keeper. They're goalies. They're players, sorry, in possession. So yeah, we've got a philosophy and we've got a syllabus that we work to. So we do a 2-week cycle on 6 moments in the game, like playing out from the back, control and create and finish. That's our in possession, and then out of possession, like high pressing, compact, and then defending the box. So fairly, I like this, the simplicity of the titles, and then we coach cycles within that.
Pretty. Can I just ask you a last question? Promise. And it's just like, again, there's going to be a lot of people that will watch this will be from obviously an amateur background. They might be involved with an amateur soccer club in Tipperary, Waterford, Galway, wherever. And I'm involved with a Gaelic football team called Denier, current county champions. We won last Sunday, just to give them a mention.
Well done.
And For My Water, which is a hurling team. So it's a small rural community. They have some, there's some guys within their squad that play inter-county, play for their county in the All-Ireland setup. And some of these guys are some of the best players in Ireland. But still, the club itself is very small. There's facilities. There's no real facility. There's no gym facility. But there's a huge amount of support and fundraising that goes on just to keep the club running, from physios, from S&C coach, from hiring buses to go to matches and all the underage setup. But just, I suppose, look, what I often think is, say the likes of you and all the experience you have within the over with Palace in the academy, and what you've seen from from looking at under-8s all the way up to where you are now. If you were to offer some advice on putting some kind of structure in place in an amateur club in terms of some kind of an academy development or underage development, what would you kind of suggest? Or I know there's so much you could suggest, but some key areas you would say, right, get this in place for a start, and then maybe on the back of that, add in a bit of this, and then, Yeah,
I think maybe try and get every age group aligned in trying to do the same thing. Like whether it's that you want to be known as a high pressing team, playing out from the back. I think I'd try and get I know, like, we have header coaching to take care of the syllabus, but you could have, listen, my son plays at Grassroots, and I know how dedicated and hard work that is. But whether you could have one person or two, or you just try and come up with some key themes that you want. So when someone watches your team, they'll know, that's their team, in terms of how they all play. And then as they progress through the ages, they're getting the same message rather than different messages each year, because we all want clarity, don't we? We all want clear messages. I think sometimes people can overcomplicate a lot of stuff. Football, rugby, there's still an end goal in mind, isn't there? Score more than the others. But I think try and get key messages. And I think it's really important for youngsters just to have enough exposure to playing. They only get better by playing and training, but the playing and having enough time to play is the key thing, because sometimes that doesn't always happen, does it? But I'd try and have a key philosophy that runs through all the age groups, so there's a clear message, clear identity. Easier said than done, I know, but
no, thank you. Okay, Dermot, will we crack on with a quick fire questions to
Go for it, boss.
finish things off? Okay, will I shoot?
Go for it.
Okay, now you kind of answered this one already, Quinny, but we go for it again.
Right.
The biggest influence on your career as a player. Now, that could be a coach, it could be whatever.
Yeah, I'd still think Ray Lewington probably more, just because of that. How he treated me and other players. I think he treated us well. We'd have it, like I said, would tear a few strips off you, but then the next day would talk to you again as a normal human.
Good, Ray Lewington. And he went on to be he was assistant manager with England, wasn't he? With
a long time. Come back to Palace. Hugely experienced.
Great lad. Okay, so the best player you played against?
Ginola was one of the best ones. Best smelling player as well.
He was like the Van Dijk of that era.
Yeah, best looking, biggest guy. Yeah, not a bad player as well.
Okay, so if you could offer one piece of advice to an aspiring coach, what would that be?
Just get the hours in. Get the hours in. I got loads of hours coaching at my college scheme under 18, where I didn't know whether there'd be 10 players or 35. And yeah, adaptability is my key word. Adapt. Be ready to adapt.
Okay, and kind of similar. If you could offer one piece of advice to an aspiring young footballer, what would that be?
Just keep going. Don't give up. Don't give up. You're going to get no's. Everyone's had no's. I've had no's when I was younger. I've had no's. I got older. You're going to get no. You're not going to be for everyone, but you got to keep going.
Okay. Final question. So 3 people, dead or alive, that you would have round to the Quinn household for dinner, and why?
Jesus, not him, not Jesus.
It'd be a good dinner date, in fairness. He'd have a few stories to tell.
Yeah, get me loads of food, wouldn't he? Yeah. That's a tough one. Wow.
Celebrity, ex-footballer,
Ex-football.
or any football, anyone.
Gaza.
Oh, yeah.
Gaza, because I've met him. I've seen him a couple of times. He's my hero. Yeah, he still will be. This is why I loved Glenn Hoddle in a football sense, because he was one of my heroes growing up. Roy Keane. I like Roy Keane, the way he played. Don't know who else.
That'd be a fun dinner.
Yeah, be a lot very.
You wouldn't want to have Patrick Vieira there.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I would actually. Yeah, get the manager there as well. So then him and Roy Keane can have some good stories together.
All right. So listen.
As long as there's Guinness there, I'll be all right.
Yeah, you'll be flying. Yeah, you'll be laughing. So Quinny, look, we're going to leave it there, and I'd like to say thanks very much for taking the time out and sharing all those nuggets. Some brilliant piece of information there, advice for all of us. And so wish you all the very best, Quinny, with the rest of the season and all you go on to do. I'm sure you're going to go further and beyond where you are now. Hopefully get over to see it, maybe some stage, even after Christmas. I have 2 young lads who are big into soccer, so I was name dropping you. And listen to anybody who's watching, we have previous episodes with David Ford, Jamie Byrne, and Lee Grace. So you can check them out here as well. So guys, Dermot, thank you very much as well.
Thank you, Richie. Thanks, Quinny. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dermot. Nice to meet you.
Me too.
Okay. Thanks, Quinny.
Cheers, mate. Yeah, you need to come over, can I?